How you going, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fairika podcast. This week we have in the studio brother Kaan Ofli. We spoke a lot about his journey towards becoming a professional MMA fighter and inshallah debuting in the UFC in the near future. So make sure he's in your du'as. We spoke about a certain personal tragic that also changed his life. So that's just a little disclaimer there, just to make sure you guys are aware of it. We spoke a lot about his upbringing and what motivates him, and in the insight of his development as well. So even if you don't enjoy the MMA that much, I guarantee you still learn a lot from him, and you will still enjoy this episode because he's a beautiful brother. We really enjoyed spending the time with him and appreciate him making time for us. So enjoy the episode.
Yeah, well, this sport doesn't pay too much.
Okay.
So it's you definitely kind of have regrets or thoughts of if you should be doing this or not. What I mean by when I say fighting chose me is no schooling, no father, no real support network at the time. So that was my only way of kind of living and following a dream. And let's be real. If you want freedom or safety or security, you need to be rich.
Fair dinkum.
No, I like that. So, what kind of effect does that jumping from school to school have on a kid? That do you feel like you've never had a place to call home per se, or do you feel like that's affected you in a good way as to like you're not very comfortable, so you're comfortable in the uncomfort. You know what I mean?
For sure. All the things that have kind of happened in my life, I've tried to allow it to make its place in my fighting, going through uncomfortable times or moving places. It's definitely not easy for a kid to keep moving schools and making new friends, or struggling to make friends, and moving locations. And there's a few types of different people, but some like to just stay in their house and that same job. I think because of me, due to being forced to move around a lot, it's now seeped into my life now, where I like to travel, and I like to I'll even go to different gyms and get different looks and whatnot. Even if where I'm living now, I'll probably end up moving in a couple of years' time, just because I need new change, new scenery. So. Sure. Look, overall it's not easy, and it all depends on your personality type. You make it work.
I'm sure from that moment you didn't have that moment where you realize you were a fighter or whatever. But what was that transition to your first ever session in a gym, a dojo or whatever?
When I first kind of started I'm going to do this seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was when I was about 17, 18, when I made the decision to do it full time.
Yep.
My coach at the time, Kelly, in Noble Park, he offered me a job and a house to stay at. And I was the youngest guy in the room, so I was training with heavyweights and light heavyweights, and we were training so hard, man. He pushed us till this day. I give him so much respect for almost molding me, into this warrior. And, so. It was, I think, I don't know, I got a little bit lost with that one, bro.
What I was getting at was essentially, because obviously from that moment as a year 7 kid, you had your first, I guess, somewhat of a fighting experience.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to know, how was that transition when you actually first started your classes or whatever? Did you hone into that aspect, or you're like, oh, I was a young kid, I need to get into this? Or was it your father that pushed it on you, or your parents?
Yeah, my father was the first one that kind of got me into martial arts. He was a martial arts fan himself, and enjoyed, and he would even show me the first kind of UFCs that happened. So I was watching it with him. And
what was the first fight? Sorry, bro, if you don't mind me asking.
It would have been on the Hoist Gracie. It would have been Hoist Gracie just putting it over everyone, this random guy.
Yeah.
I still remember him telling me his story too, that they picked him to compete in the UFC because he was the weakest, essentially, or the smallest one out of all the Gracies. And they said, if we put him with one of the other boys that's big, people will think it's rigged.
Yeah.
So we got to put him with the smallest one to prove to everyone that jiu-jitsu works. And I think around 16, I did my first Brazilian jiu-jitsu competition, Australian Championships, and I won. Only had like a few months training in BJJ. Then and there, I almost felt like a sense of, okay, like this feels very natural to me. You know, I love this feeling, whatever it is, and I want to keep doing it. So
It clicked almost for you. That was your moment you realized, okay, I could actually make something out of this.
yeah. It was just like a suit that fits right.
Yeah.
I couldn't really explain it, you know, but whatever it was just like, this feels natural. This feels like what I'm meant to do, and we're just gonna
Just go with the flow. Yeah.
exactly.
I understand. I get you.
Did you look up to anyone at that point of time? Because obviously, right now, BJJ, MMA is like the thing. You see, you got Absolute, you see all the boys doing it. Like even us younger guys, we've got guys like you guys to look up to. But like in that period of time, was there anyone, I guess, from the older generation doing it at the time that you were like, okay, like I want to aspire to be like them?
Nah, growing up, I didn't really have any role models at all in life or in fighting. So I never really had that. I want to be like this person, or I want to be like that person. So, but early on, everyone wasn't good in MMA, right? In UFC, there was like a really good jiu-jitsu guy, or there was like a really good striker,
Or a wrestler.
or a wrestler, exactly. And there was maybe one or two guys that kind of put things together, like Ken Shamrock and maybe one or two other guys.
Yep.
And early on, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I have to be good at all of these things.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, yes, the jiu-jitsu, you know, can beat everyone. But yeah, I have to be good at everything. So yeah, I just took inspiration from different people and different art forms, and tried to just mend it together and be as all-rounded as possible.
Because you'll see, like, for example, like the evolution, I think would have started with like GSP, yeah? Where you see this guy is, like he was a decent on-foot fighter, but like extremely good at wrestling. And then you have, for example, Khabib now, who's basically proven that if you're extremely good at one aspect of fighting, you can dominate. You know what I mean? So is there a particular fighting style or martial art that you feel like you honed in and have mastered so far?
I guess grappling came natural to me. And I guess, I don't know if it's my body type or it was just my style.
Yeah, I was going to say you got the wrestler build,
If I do get on top of you, it's not a good time at all. You know? Like you said, GSP was probably the first that, you know, we could see someone as all-rounded and can put things together, and not just the striking and wrestling, but the IQ and the athleticism. I would say wrestling, grappling, but just everything.
There was a podcast I was listening to from Joe Rogan, and GSP was talking about how he prepared for the second fight with BJ Penn, because obviously the first fight BJ was catching him, and he realized that the reactions of BJ Penn were a lot quicker, so they went frame by frame to watch who was like, and they were saying there was like 2 frames per second or whatever it was of that. Like, so if GSP went toe to toe with BJ Penn, he was no chance basically. So they go, okay, we had to switch, because obviously BJ was lighting him up in the first couple rounds in the first fight, and then they switched tactics and GSP just took him down and dominated from there. But they noticed that there's 1% when you get to the elite of the elite. There's only these 1% differences that create the separation between whether you're going to become a champion and not a champion. And do you feel like you're in a position now, inshallah, to kind of push and get those 1% here in Australia, or do you feel like you need to go elsewhere in order to get that stuff?
Australia is proving now that the best talent is coming out of Australia, which is really exciting. We have the resources and the coaches and the understanding of sport, or all different sports, to put everything together and be as great as you can. And obviously, it's kind of been proven already. You know, Robert Whittaker, Volkanovski, Adesanya, and many other amazing athletes coming out of Australia and New Zealand from this part of the world. So, of course, different countries have got their specialties. You know, you've got your Dagestan, Chechnya for their wrestling and whatnot. And, you know, even say Europe for striking. But, you know, you can definitely get everything that you need here.
Yeah, it's definitely because you notice that there's like phases where, like, for example, Greg Jackson was killing it, and then you had Faraz Zahabi, his style was killing it. Trevor Whitman, obviously, recently with Gaethje and the calf kicks and stuff like that. You start to notice that there's kind of phases. Yeah. And the next phase, obviously, you've seen Adesanya now, and his resilience and what's the gym called in New Zealand?
City kickboxing.
Yeah, so you see that they're kind of dominating at the moment. Do you feel like there's a new generation of fighting style that's being brought up here in this area and down under?
Yeah, for sure. And that would be people that are able to put everything together. The sport is evolving, and it always, like you said, has its phases of maybe techniques or positions that will be popular in that time, or that works in that time, and people aren't haven't caught on to yet. So as much knowledge as you can get and techniques you can get, and find what works for you, because like we could all go train for us, and maybe only something will work for you, but it won't work for me.
Yep.
Maybe it's my body type or whatever it is, but then we go train city kickboxing. There'll be something that works for me and maybe not for you, So as a young fighter, you have to, once you reach the ceiling in your gym or room, you have to either get your coaches to show you new things, or you need to train with new training partners to get different looks, or travel to learn. So you have to always be expanding on your knowledge and craft.
Yeah. So just for people who don't know who you are, because I forgot that we had to introduce the guest.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro. This is Kaan. He's actually the Hex Fighting Championship featherweight champ at the moment, or did you vacate the title to?
Still the champ.
Yeah, it's my apologies, bro, because I'm not as connected to the Hex Fighting Championship as I would be with anything else. But basically, for people who don't know, the Hex Fighting Championship was actually the ranks that Adesanya went through in order to get to where he is now in the UFC. He held the title in the middleweight division as well, correct? So this is, alhamdulillah, is a very good stepping stone for our brother Genghis Kaan Ofli. Let's just put that there. What a name. Where'd you come with that? Honestly, that is like one of the most killer names I've heard.
Yeah, just at a young age, for some reason, I think maybe I was even just searching my lineage or history, about the world and culture and everything like that. And, of course, I came across one of the greatest conquerors. And people will argue, I guess, to see, if he was actually a Muslim or not. But, he had the tendencies, as much as being ruthless. But it's a very different time. And I kind of heard his story, and read about his story, and looked into him more. And I just got like
crazy. Huh?
I was like, man, like this man is amazing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's a warrior. He's got an empire, conquered the most amount of land.
You're probably his descendant as well, for all you know.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm looking into him more. I'm like, that region, this region. I'm like, man, like I must be in his bloodline somewhere.
For sure. You should do an ancestral test.
Yeah,
it's very possible, bro.
So it was just more like just kind of just really, enjoying, liking his story and kind of almost looking up to him in a way as this amazing conqueror. And that was just that. And then years later, we'll kind of with some other fighter friends, and we're eating lunch, and people were talking about fight names for themselves, and everyone started kind of choosing their own fight names, like 1 or 2 fights in, everyone's like, oh, my fight name is going to be this.
Yeah.
And they came to me, they're like, what about you? I'm like, well, I don't want a fight name, man.
Yeah.
Like, my name's Kaan, and I was thinking that, I got a tattoo when I was young of Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
And they looked at my arm and they're like, well, what about Genghis?
Yeah.
Because Genghis Khan means great king. And Timurjin was the conqueror's name, Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
So they're like, use great like Genghis and your name Khan as king. And I was like, say less. Like, that's it, that's
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be. So that's how that happened.
That's amazing.
That's legendary.
And like obviously when you put a name on something, it means that's it. You have to fit the bill, yeah?
Live up to it.
Yeah, that is true. It's a very hard name to actually live up to. But I almost, use him as my alter ego when it comes to the fighting. And yeah, just tap into that
Because I've noticed
mentality.
there's Alexander the Great Volkanovski, and then now there's Genghis Khan, bro. What a battle!
Yeah,
Yeah, because
that's
you're
insane.
obviously in the same weight
Both
division
from
as well.
Australia as well.
Two great conquerors of our
Not far away from each other.
no, not at all.
If you both go toe to toe, that'd be funny. But I obviously, I think that you probably won't ever cross paths at this time because you'll probably be at the end of his career, and you'll probably be, inshallah, getting the belt at a time when he's,
Yeah,
he's
well,
about to
I would
step off
say
the throne.
that'd probably be the dream fight, right?
Yeah.
If there was, like, if I just wake up tomorrow and someone's like, hey, we're going to make a fight happen.
Yeah. It'd be
Alexander the Great versus Genghis Khan
Yeah.
Crazy.
in a cage on top of Ezrock or something. Like, middle of the desert.
That's
you know?
deadly marketing.
You know what I mean? Like, just palm trees and just, yeah, it'll be good.
Just touching on what Wally was mentioning about the marketing stuff of things. We obviously seen Colby Covington come into the UFC, and nobody really gave a crap about who he was or whatever. He was a nice guy, he was just floating about, and his fighting wasn't really doing the best because his style's a bit boring. And then he created a persona after that one fight in Brazil that he had, that he's this white supremacist kind of, like MAGA wearing, all that kind of stuff. Is there, are you getting advice from anybody in the background telling you, you got to create some sort of a persona for you to kind of, make waves in it? Because obviously Conor McGregor's...
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a thing. Yes and no. Some people have been in my ear about it. The way I like to see it is just be yourself and things will come. Then again, yes, it works to put on a little bit of a persona and it's entertainment at the end of the day, so you have to be and act a certain way sometimes. Then again, there's champions like Volkanovski himself where he doesn't get the credit for this, but he kind of, he was 13-1 when he got into the UFC, so he had a real long and hard pathway to get in there. And even though he got in and he was smashing all these guys, like Chad Mendes, and he beat, Jose, longest reigning champion in Brazil. And like he did it, but like still wasn't getting the credit.
Exactly.
Like he's got it now, but he's pound for pound now. He's the best now. But he went through that period where people weren't really like praising him or like, and that just kind of shows like just stay on the grind, do your thing, be yourself, and you'll get there the hard way. And sometimes it's the best athletes or the best people in the world that have a slower path.
Yeah, it's almost like let your work do the talking for you, essentially.
For sure, and you can get to places quicker if you be someone who that you're not.
Yeah.
You lie or do some wrong things. You may get to where you want to get to faster, but you'll also fall down quicker too.
Because he's a fighter's fighter, yeah? That's like, the way they have like rappers and they say, oh, he's your rapper's favorite rapper, but nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's like underground or whatever it is. But just, for me, just call someone out randomly. Just like, just shake the boat
Spice
a
it
little
up
bit,
a
bro.
little bit, yeah.
I feel like, obviously, like you were saying, you don't like being something that you're not. And understandably so, bro. I think that's a lot more commendable and respectable, especially if you've grown up with morals and ethics of, like, I don't want to like cheat my way to the position I want to get into. But when I think about it, I'm like, wow, Volk is a perfect example of what you're saying, because he's somebody we've seen dominate fighters that don't look like they should be dominated, like Max Holloway, for example. And he didn't get his respect until recently when he went toe-to-toe with Islam. By the way, I'm not happy about that, but now obviously there's this fine line between being acknowledged and obviously seeing Mighty Mouse have to leave the UFC because of his lack of drawing a big fight number and so on and so forth. So I would then ask you, like, is it you still gonna stick to it or?
No, look, I'm definitely coming out of my shell a little bit more and just trying to be, I'm naturally funny, I do have a funny side to me. I just gotta, be myself, and there'll definitely be sides of me that people, they're like, oh, like he's like that, and it'll still be in the most, humble way possible, but there might be a little bit of shit talking or name calling or something like that without hurting people too much, but. That's what I do. I guess I hurt people at the end of the day.
It's part of the business.
You're in the business of pain, huh?
I just want to take it back just a little bit to when you were saying the early stages, fighting sort of almost like came to you. And then now, obviously, as you like progress in your career, you obviously get better, then you hit that ceiling, as you said, type of thing. I want to know what gives you that inner motivation every single day to like continually fight and I guess be the best version of yourself and the best in the world. I guess that's the long-term goal.
Yeah, well, this sport doesn't pay too much.
Okay.
So it's, you definitely kind of have regrets or, you know, thoughts of if you should be doing this or not. What I mean by when I say fighting chose me is, you know, no schooling, no father, no real support network at the time. So that was my only way of kind of living and, you know, following a dream. And like, let's be real. If you want freedom or safety or security, you need to be rich.
You need money, yeah.
And otherwise, you need to know how to fight.
Yeah. That's something Andrew Tate said recently.
You know, so that's how you're going to get
a good point.
respect in this world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So I'd rather be broke but know how to fight, you know, than broke and not know how to fight. So if someone comes into my family home and tries to take everything I got, you know, at least I can protect my family. At least, you know, if all things go crazy in the world, you know, I'll have some skills to be able to get through. You know? But right now, I want to be both. Yeah, I want to be rich and a fighter. But yeah, so
Bring
that's kind of where I'm at and what drives me every day, because I'm like, I don't come from much. You know, I come from humble beginnings, and I made this decision to make the most out of my career and to be a world champion. So that's what drives me every day, bro.
Sure, yeah.
I wanted to ask or touch on, if you don't mind, obviously the passing away of your father. How do you feel that affected you? Because obviously I don't. What age did he pass away when you were 17? You said?
About 18.
Yeah. So obviously his formative years of your life, and I'm not too sure how he passed away. Was it?
Suicide. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Are you comfortable touching on that, bro?
Yeah, we can speak about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was a good man, and he kind of was the type of person that would do things for people all the time out of his heart and do it for free. So in his life, he kind of got taken advantage of. You know, and it was just the type of guy that would just want some sort of, you know, thank you or something. Like, it wasn't even anything major. So he had a really good heart. And I guess over the years, you know, things took its toll. The sad thing kind of about that is, I should tell you an interesting story about that, and how everything else kind of connects in the world in a funny way. When it happened, I was at the beach. It was a really hot day. It was like 38 degrees, 39 degrees, and we're at the beach in the water with a few friends, and we were throwing a ball to each other. And out of nowhere, I got this massive pain in my neck, like cramp almost, like immobilized, to the point where I couldn't like lift my arm up, and like my friend threw the ball at me and I couldn't catch it, and my face changed and everything. I was like, what's going on? And he looked at me, he's like, bro, are you okay? And I was like, nah, you know, like from smiling, laughing, I was like, nah, I'm not okay. And just pain, you know, huge pain in my neck and shoulder. So I get out of the water, and I'm just like, what is this feeling? And something tells me to check my phone, and I check my phone, and I've got like 10, 20, you know, missed calls from my uncle. You know, I call him back, and he's like, you know, quick, come to the hospital. Your father hung himself, and that was like a huge shock. To hear that, and also to kind of experience what I had just experienced with this huge, you know, kind of pain in my neck, and everything kind of was like flashing before my eyes, and it didn't make sense, you know. So yeah, then and there I kind of like just rushed to the hospital. I was going like 150 kilometers down just normal roads, probably got like 10 fines, and he was on life support for a week or two, so that was also hard, you know, knowing if he was going to be okay or not. But eventually we lost him. But yeah, that moment that I had that pain, and it was like kind of the same time that it happened, like that was one of the most bizarre things that I've ever experienced in my life, and how crazy, you know, it shows that this world is, you know, connected. You know, you hear things with like twins, like feeling, you know, if they're kind of away from each other and something happens to one, they feel it.
Telepathy,
you know. So yeah, look, that was a really hard time in my life, and took me a little while to get over it. But yeah, so I'd always be thankful to my life and martial arts, and it being able to give me an outlet to express myself in a positive way as well. So
Hang on a sec. You guys are not subscribed. I think you guys, before you start the video, make sure you subscribe, turn off the notification bell, and enjoy the rest of the video.
Is there a particular moment where you kind of, you just had to feel, okay, you come to terms with what's happened, and obviously what methods did you use to kind of, come out of the, because it's a dark situation. It's something where you can't really feel that void anymore because your father's your father. You know what I mean? Is there a particular thing that you did to kind of get back to normal everyday life?
There wasn't really, and I didn't really see anyone for counselling or anything like that. I do have a bit of a special power, to be honest, and I got it when I was young. And when I was going through any trauma in my life when I was young, I've still got this skill that I can really block things out, and I can really focus and zone into one thing. And when I was younger, it would be like, parents are fighting, I'm like zoning into like playing a video game or, reading a book or coloring or doing some shit. So that skill in itself, I didn't realize, I kind of kept onto, so I use that skill when I go into the cage and I can zone in and focus, or if I've got some external problems in my life, I'm truly able to block things out and just do kind of what's in front of me. So yeah, that skill in itself, blocking things out, it's not the most positive thing. But you can also use it to not think and to kind of keep training, keep staying healthy, and kind of stay on the right path.
Yeah, sure.
So obviously there's
No, go.
So obviously there's a massive topic around mental health now. Especially with the experience that you've gone through, do you feel like there's alternatives besides fighting that can help people through what they're going through? Because obviously there must be somebody else out there who's actually going through what you've gone through. Is there a particular thing that you did besides fighting and blocking it out that kind of helped you, come to terms with what happened?
Yeah, I would say I got lucky. Allah gave me a power to be able to deal with my trauma and all my hardships in life, and maybe I'm luckier than others. So I hope that someone that's kind of gone through hardship or gone through suicide or mental health will have the power or the strength to find something to keep them on track and to keep their life positive. But 100%, it's seeing someone, speaking to people. The worst thing to do is to keep it in, and me letting it out was in the gym. So I think regardless of being a man and being, feeling strong, you need to go in the gym, man. You need to go in the gym. You need to train. You need to be healthy. You need to feel good. And then you'll feel like you've got the power to overcome other things in your life. It's a very simple thing, but, when you're sitting at home and you're in bed and you're not doing anything, you're not getting out of bed, it's going to be very hard to tackle your life problems, if it's financial, if it's mental, if it's relationships. It's like a small little foundation that you need to get yourself out, to push yourself, to work harder, to strive. That will then have a ripple effect on, getting on top of other things in your life.
Definitely.
But yeah, of course, we know psychology and speaking to counsellors and whatnot is a good thing. But all I can kind of say is find your outlet. Find your outlet that you can express yourself, because the worst thing is to bottle things up, let that bottle fill up, and then all someone needs to do is just flick you, and then you're set off. So to not allow yourself to ever reach that point of that bottle filling up. So when I say expressing myself, so if my bottle's filling up, life's getting hard, I've got stress problems, I go to the gym, I work out, I sweat, and I empty that bottle a little bit. I don't let it to fill up.
Yeah.
So and everyone needs this in life. No matter who you are, how much money you've got, what car you drive, everyone's got problems. Everyone's got things that they deal with. Definitely. No one's perfect in this life, and we're all given tests on this earth. So it's normal. It's a part of life. So yeah, we just have to be the strongest men and women possible to be able to overcome anything that comes to us.
For sure. I think part of that is like also acknowledging that you go through hardships, and we all go through it as well. And
yeah, just having that understanding alone, like, you know, your life's not going to be perfect, you know what I mean? And that may be harder for some people to understand if everything's been given to you from a young age and you haven't really experienced any hardship till, you know, you start getting a little bit older. And even now with my fighting, I'm like, yeah, it's normal. You're going to be tired. Some days you're going to be injured. Some fights you're going to go in with an injury or this or that, and just know, okay, like, it's just part of it. It's part of life. It's part of being tested. So just having that understanding, almost being prepared for the good and bad days, it's much easier to get through it.
Yeah, and you see even nowadays as well, like I was recently watching, like as in how the mental strength in life, like even directly correlates or translates to the fighting game as well. Like I was watching a documentary, you know, the new Conor McGregor documentary that came out, and then a reporter asked him how much of the fighting game is about mental strength, you know, and before in the early days, they'll be like, oh yeah, 50, 60%, this, that. And he goes, it's everything's about it. It's 110% is all mental strength, you know? So I see how that directly correlates. And I wanted to know, and I want to ask you, when you go into the fighting scene, or let's just say into the cage, are there certain things that you tap into or hone into to give you that sort of mental fortification?
Yeah, I do. And just touching back on what you said, like if you look at all the champions, most of them, I would say like 90% have gone through some sort of hardships in their life. And you got Charles Oliveira come from the favelas. And that photo kills me every time on his motorbike. Like, most amazing photo, you know, like anyone's got to get inspiration from that.
And Ghana as well, digging up the holes.
Do you know what I mean? Like, come on, like swimming through the sea, you know, for his life. You know what I mean? Like, so the hardships, almost, if you can harness it into a positive way, or into fighting, it 100% correlates and will give you more power than the other man. And I use that when I go and fight. Sometimes if I need something to fuel me, my own past fuels me already. You know, when I tap into Genghis Khan, the Conqueror, sometimes, you know, I strip everything apart and I'm just like, well, we're just battling now. You know, like it's not a competition anymore. It's not a fight. You know, it's not a championship. It's my land versus yours. You know what I mean? It's my last name versus yours. Like sometimes I go to that extent of ruthlessness. And sometimes I just touch back on what I've gone through. I'm like, this guy hasn't gone through what you've gone through. You know, he didn't have to experience that. You've experienced it. You deserve to be here. You know what I mean? So using all my hardship to almost fuel me. And honestly, like every single time, that guy feels it. He looks at my eyes and he's like, oh, this guy's not backing down. This guy's like legit here. Like he's going to die here, you know? Like, so that's kind of my vibe when I go in there. And I all my hardships, you know, my whole life, like that's what I'm fighting for, you know?
I'm going to keep turning up. I'm going to keep being there. Yeah, definitely, bro.
Yeah, and that's a different energy, man. That's a different energy compared to someone else that's just, you know, had it really good and nothing's gone wrong in their life. And
And your opposition will see it as well, and like you said, they'll feel it.
Yeah. It's an unspoken thing, but it's straight energy.
Yeah, because you're talking about two people like basically fighting, and there's the possibility of death. Yeah. And then you got one guy who's basically looking at you like, bro, you can throw the kitchen sink at me right now.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not getting you. I'm like, wait, do I feel? And if there's that little inch of doubt, obviously, if you don't have that mental fortitude, there's that little inch of doubt. It's going to get into you and you're gone.
It's a common theme as well between athletes as well. Like LeBron James was once saying this in regards to like being that 1% of top NBA players out there. It's like there's a lot of people that are not in the NBA that like possess the skill set required to play basketball, obviously, you know, but they're just people out there that just want it even more. They have like a story behind them that motivates them, that just to keep going, pushing every single day. It's like, why do you want to rock up to training today? It's like, because it's such and such. Why do you want to win at the end of the day? It's like, because it's such and such, you know? It's like that story that builds it.
He would almost make things up, you know, to fuel him. So sometimes, you do need that. Like, you know, you can't have every day where you wake up and you're fully motivated and whatnot. So you can have off days. I was reading a book where he was like, he would look at someone that's wearing his shoes or something like that and just get angry about that, you know, just to fuel him for that match, you know, like something so silly and small, but just shows how he's tapping into something else to have an edge on
definitely. So obviously you're 14-0, correct? Is that 14 or 15-0?
No. I've had 2 losses. I've had 2 decision losses. One was a split decision. The other one was unanimous. So I'm 11-1.
Okay.
So, yeah, 14 fights.
Because I remember like there's a post-fight interview when you had the title. Obviously, you took the championship fight on 2 weeks notice.
Yes.
That was a great fight, by the way. I watched the highlights to that, and I was just like, "Nah, this kid's superb, bro."
Yeah,
You know?
2 weeks notice.
Fight of the year for sure.
For sure. And plus the guy that you're going up against, sorry to cut you off,
Go ahead,
but the
bro.
guy that you're fighting against, obviously he put up a great performance as well, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
So he almost like brought the best out in you, in a way.
Exactly. And that's what's going to happen now with, the level of competition in the UFC. I'm going to be fighting the best, and they're just going to force me to bring out everything. So, it's exciting times.
So we're gonna touch on that just now. The whole idea of fighting in a place or an organization that you've been watching since you were obviously a little kid. What's that like? Like, what is it excitement? Is it nervousness? Is it a mixture of a bunch of emotions? Or
There's definitely nerves, but I would say the nerves are more so excitement now. It's one of them things where you're working at this thing for so long and so many years, and you're rocking up and you're training, and sometimes the end goal isn't as clear anymore, and you kind of I used to have visions of, even on my laptop I would put like my screensaver or whatever it was, wallpaper, of the UFC cage, back when I was young. So like every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be fighting in there. Small things. I do small little visioning things. Yeah, then there's years where I just thought, I don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, but we're just going to keep rocking up and doing it. Until recently, where I've been on a recent tear, and I've been quite active, and I had some good performances where I was like, oh, we're so close now.
Yeah.
Like all them times that I thought, like, when's it going to happen? How's it going to happen? It's like, we're here now, So that's really exciting, that it's almost like, what do they say? Like a 10-year overnight sensation type of thing, So you've been working at something for so long, but some people just see like you doing, great things now.
Yeah.
So,
is the goal to be in the show, or is the goal to run the show and become the champ?
Of course, bro. I'm not. I'm not doing this just to,
I get you.
take part.
Because it sounded like you were just happy to be there.
No. Like, I'm gonna go there and do whatever I can, and of course, my goal is to be champion, and be a UFC champion. And if you're not thinking like that, then
What's the point of being there at all?
you can be part of it and whatnot, but everyone's got a different life and a different story, but that's not mine.
I love that.
100%.
How's it been for you in terms of balancing like emotions, like in terms of, let's just say, even confidence? Because you're hearing UFC a lot, people are probably talking about you or even to you saying, oh, like, you're almost there, you should be there right now, why aren't you? How is that in terms of balancing your emotions, staying honed in with your training?
It's like, it's almost fueling me, it's almost like, okay, people are like letting me know and whatnot, and that makes me feel good. That almost gives me confidence too, where it doesn't allow me to have a day off now, where it feels like I'm so close. I want to make sure that when I get in there, no stone unturned, and I'm the best version of myself. I'm sure with every fight, there's nerves and there's excitement. With each fight, the stakes get higher, the crowd gets bigger, your support network gets bigger, so that's always going to be a tough element to balance. And that's just something that comes with it. Everyone will experience some sort of emotion when it comes to fighting on the biggest platform in the world.
And it all goes back to sort of like your preparation prior to like those big fights.
Exactly. Yeah, your training, your mental training, your breath work, all your preparation leading up to that. So that shouldn't be something that affects you. You should just go in there and be excited that you've kind of made it to the big where you wanted to get to, and do your thing.
Yeah, speaking about preparation, you were recently obviously in Bali. Was that in preparation for something that's happening in the future, or is that just straight training?
That was just training. That was just training. Almost maybe first phase of my camp.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when I'm fighting. My last couple of fights have been short notice. So the last couple of years I got inspiration from a few guys that no days off type of thing, where we're just always training, you know. And sometimes I would always be training, but sometimes I would have a few weeks off or this or that. And now I train 7 days, honestly.
Oh,
like
wow.
I train every day.
Fight
And
ready.
yeah, like the intensity will vary, you know, but no days off. And sorry, I forgot your question.
I was just touching on to
Bali.
like Bali,
Yeah,
but
Bali,
I've got the
yeah.
gist of it. Essentially,
Yeah, just the first phase
like,
of camp,
yeah.
lose some weight, get some sun, like
Bali
just
was
get
the honeymoon.
re-energized.
that's what I thought
Bali on the
initially.
honeymoon.
Slash honeymoon.
Slash honeymoon.
But it was a 10-week camp, wasn't it, or something along those lines?
No, I was there for about 4 weeks.
4 weeks,
yeah.
okay.
That's enough for you to
Yeah,
get the vitamin D and get a sweat
sure.
on.
And have a
Reset,
bit of
bro.
enjoy the Bali side of things.
Exactly. So now I'm energized. So now that was my little 4 weeks reset, and now ready to pump it in the cold.
Yeah.
When you were like when you used to watch UFC when you were younger, is there a specific fighter that you used to look at and say, I really want to emulate his style, or are you wanting to create your own style? Because obviously there's people that have pioneered certain avenues of fighting within the UFC, and we've seen it over the years. If everyone's been watching, like there was Mirko Krokop back in the Pride days, you know, head kicking people, their heads off their shoulders, and then you got GSP with his all-roundedness, and you got Khabib dominating in the wrestling from Dagestani style, Sambo, yeah. So I'd ask you, do you want to be somebody that's creating a fighting style, or are you kind of using somebody's blueprint, basically?
It's a good question. I guess it's a bit of a different question than, you know, who's your favorite fighter. So
You can use both if you want to answer both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would say my favorite fighter is myself.
I love that.
But also low key, maybe Muhammad Ali as one of the greatest. As to my fighting style, I have to be honest and say, of course, I take things from different people and try and make it work within myself. But I think I'm a unique individual. And yeah, I feel like if you watch me, you can't be like, oh, he fights exactly like him.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm creating my own style almost, and I feel like everyone should be doing that anyway.
Yeah.
And there'll be certain things or rhythms or footwork that will work for most people, but not their whole game.
Do you have like a signature move? I've never watched you fight. That's the problem. I should have watched
Show you after.
The thing is,
The real deal.
because like I'll give you an example.
Exclusive.
You know how Gaethje kind of signatured the calf kick,
Yes.
and then you've got, you know, Masvidal's stutter step punch or whatever it is, and it's kind of like a signature move. I know I'm kind of putting a WWE reference on this stuff, but is there something that you kind of do that differentiates you from other people, or are you really good at what you do?
I seem to choke a lot of people out, bro. Like it seems to be my thing that when I get onto someone's neck, like it's usually done. And I can get it from a lot of different positions.
Yeah.
What I really love about that is no matter who your opponent is, no matter what round, no matter how fit they are, like you can kind of defend an arm lock or a shoulder lock or whatever it is, or you can get rocked and kind of come back. But
Yeah.
when you're in a choke, when you're in a submission, like
You're passing out.
yeah,
You're passing out regardless.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's done. So it's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone's obviously got their own little specific traits and what's called whatnot that makes them specifically them. But even on the other side of things as well, is like now you're the upcoming fighter here in Australia. Like Australia needs like someone other than I guess Jack Jenkins and Volkanovski and all those boys to like get behind. You know what I mean? Like you've seen it with like the fights in Perth, the fights in the one that's coming up in Sydney, the one in Melbourne that happened a couple of years ago, where they get sold out straight away type of thing. You know what I mean? And it's almost amazing that it's coming here. You know?
Yeah.
And obviously we've got UFC 293 coming up. Possibly trying to head towards that. Is that a goal of yours?
That's definitely a goal. UFC Sydney, also UFC Singapore also just got announced recently. So out of the two, and of course there's Contender Series, that is a possibility. So any of them three are options, of course I'm jumping onto. yeah, and it's really exciting. Like if it's Australia, that would be a dream, to be honest, to be able to just, you know, fight at a filled out stadium. Like we know it's going to be sold out within a couple hours.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
instantly.
Like it's pretty crazy how much support that Australia is giving towards mixed martial arts. You know, it's the fastest growing sport in the world, but we love it over here.
Yeah.
So
Australians love to get behind their own as well.
Yes.
You know? Like we've seen that like heaps of times as well.
You know, and there's I wouldn't say there's many of us, not really in the UFC. If you compare it to like, I was looking actually the other day, I think there's only about 500-600 people rostered on the UFC, which is pretty crazy, very small number. But if you look at how many Americans or Brazilians there are, it's probably doesn't compare to Australian or New Zealanders. So we're still kind of, I wouldn't say new in the sport, but definitely making.
We're starting to make a name for
100%.
ourselves and stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
what's it like training with the other boys? Like I know you've rolled and trained with Volkanovski, Jack Jenkins, and all that kind of stuff. Does that give you obviously some sort of inspiration as to getting into the UFC and whatnot?
Yeah, it's. I'm so grateful to have them guys and also the experience for them sessions. Jack Jenkins is an amazing training partner and an amazing athlete himself, very strong. All three of us almost have a very similar body and fighting style a little bit. So to have that experience alone is like, I'm sure many people around the world would die for. So it gives myself a lot of confidence, and anyone else from Australia that's trained with us or them boys, huge confidence that we can take it onto the world stage, you know. And sometimes when you're so far away from the world, you don't experience training with other people or seeing things. So we just see people on TV. Sometimes they look bigger on TV too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like UFC guys I've trained with, like Aljamain or, you know, some other guys, and I met them in person and I'm like, oh,
Shut up. Yeah.
like you're just like me, or, you know what I mean? Like, so
Wow.
like, yeah, when I was younger, I always used to kind of like feel almost not intimidated, but like, oh, so far to go or so much to grow. You know, it's like, no, these guys are just as fast as you, just as, you know, it's not a huge gap.
Yeah.
So it gives everyone confidence.
When you're rolling with Volkanovski, for example, obviously he's pound for pound one of the best in the world right now. When you're rolling with someone like him, can you feel the difference?
For sure, yeah, he's a unit, man. He's really strong. He's got all the attributes, to be honest. You know, he's fast, he's technical, he's powerful, he's compact, and he's got a really good fight IQ too. You know, the guy's like always thinking, you know, like your first round with him, you know, I think most people's experience with sparring with or training with Volkanovski is like the first round they probably think it's like all good. They're like, oh,
Yeah. And then
he's a champ, but you know, he's all good. You know what I mean?
gives you
Like,
the heat.
move around, you know. But he's watching you. He's reading you. He's filling notes. And second, third round, it's like a different person. You know what I mean? So the senses get turned up. Yeah, and like there's not a lot of people. Like I've trained with some other champions and Russians and Chechens and Dagestanis, and he's definitely special.
I want to say one thing. Yeah, I'm a bit ignorant to this, obviously, because I come from sort of like a basketball, football background type of thing. But what's the scouting like in like the UFC? So to fight at like UFC 293, like how do you? Obviously, you make a name for yourself by winning and whatnot. But to get into the UFC and break through, is there like a specific method, or do they send people down? How does that work? Or is there an application you feel?
No one really knows how it works, and there's no real formula. But from my experience and what I can tell to the young fighters is the fastest pathway to UFC is to have an undefeated record and to have finishes. That would be the number one first way to make headlines and get in there. Of course, your social media or external things can help. You know, sometimes we've seen some celebrities and whatnot get there quicker, or in life get things a little bit quicker than others that deserve it, and that's just because of the followers and whatnot. Definitely. So that's just the world that we're in. So that plays an effect too. So your record, how exciting you are. As we know, like in this world, it's also networking too, and who you know. Being at the right place at the right time. unfortunately in Australia we're so far away from the world. Luckily they're doing more shows here, which gives guys more of a chance. But if you're living in America or Europe, you're definitely going to have more exposure to being on different shows and getting on quick notice fights and stuff. Like here, if I was to go, if they were to offer me a fight next week, UFC in America, I would say yes, but I would have to get visa, and have to go through that process. So like, just that alone, you can miss out on an opportunity because we live in Australia.
Definitely.
So just things like that, But undefeated finishes, that's the number one way to get in. Other than that, it's just be a champion, keep fighting, be exciting, and your time will come.
So they've kind of separated basically the human being. So that if, for example, you got one chink on your armor, which is like a loss, but it was a split decision, they don't really care. They're just like, there's a billion people that are trying to get into the UFC. If you're there, if you have that clean record, those finishes, we'll bring you in. That means you got something that we want to see. And if not, then stuff like it is what it is.
Yeah, they want to see warriors, you know what I mean? They don't want to see people just edging out wins and decisions, because that's not as exciting as two people kind of leaving it out there. And what's more exciting than two guys undefeated fighting each other?
Exactly.
That's like that element of, competition and energy is like...
Yeah, definitely. Well, you've definitely been making a name for yourself, and inshallah, hopefully we see you at UFC 293. That's definitely... just before we end the podcast, I'm curious to know this, but what's your go-to coffee order?
Go-to coffee order is just a strong latte or strong 3/4 latte.
Have you tried a magic before?
I have tried a magic.
Not there.
It's kind of a new term. I feel like it's kind of like a 3/4 strong latte, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I just got to say magic from now on.
Just sounds fancier.
Is that what you guys are on, the magics?
No,
he loves the
I'm a
magic.
simple man. Yeah, this guy's a magic guy.
Superman.
Simple man.
Oh,
Simple man. Espresso.
I don't need coffee.
That's a new one. Yeah. I don't need caffeine.
But for me, it was like, for the longest time, I used to just get piccolos because they're like mini lattes,
Yeah.
And they hit you with the right amount of energy that you need, you can move. And I was like, you know what, I want to enjoy this for a little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah.
I was in magic. I was like, oh, wait, this exists?
Yeah.
I go to Sydney, order a magic. They look at me like, what is wrong with you, cuz?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, you never heard of magic before? They're like, nah, bro, get out of here.
It's so nice
and culture.
Melbourne's a place, man.
Yeah.
Coffee, it's got to be the best in the
We
world.
killed it, in that aspect. And it's good that we have our own little... Like, we can't be telling people that, like, we're the coffee capital of Australia and then not have our own little coffee, you know what I mean?
100%, yeah.
So-
And magic's a good one for it too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Is this pre-fight as well?
Having coffee?
You like an extra one or?
Nah, I try and just stick to one a day.
Okay.
Otherwise it'll give me too much jitters and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
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 What do you think
that
of?
coffee buzz, it's like sometimes too much.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
What
I
do you-
right off that old voice.
What do you think of Tate? He drinks 10 to 15 cups of coffee and he just smokes cigarettes, apparently.
Is that true?
Yeah,
apparently,
He does.
apparently.
He reckons...
And Willie runs with it now.
I don't. Well, I run with the coffee aspect
Yeah,
of
that
it,
coffee,
not the smoking
yeah.
aspect of it all.
Solely coffee.
No, but he was just tapping into the whole side of trying to be into like that primal state, I guess, where he goes. It gives him that sort of like edge to be ready type of thing, you know what I mean? And I sort of understand that, you know what I mean? Because you get that little anxious, like borderline jittery feeling. Because you don't want to be on the other side of the jittery side where you're like anxious and jittery and all that kind of stuff. But it does give you that bit of like that focus type of thing, you know what I mean?
I feel you.
Brings you in.
Yeah.
I reckon we can end the podcast with one last question. So your dream fight, you've already said Volkanovski, yeah?
Yeah.
Is
Make it
there
happen.
another person there that's on the horizon, hopefully? Someone that's, you know, as well as Volkanovski is, but maybe not, like, obviously achievable. Somebody in the past, you know, somebody dead or alive.
Oh, God.
Dead or alive is a good question. I like
Dead
that.
or
Yeah.
alive, man. Yeah. No, there's nothing, no one that I hate that much.
Genghis Khan.
To bring him out of the ground to fight.
Nobody?
No.
Just Volk?
Oh, if we're talking like in the UFC now, I don't know. I was watching the last UFC event or one before. There was a featherweights fighting Alex Caceres. I'd fight him.
Oh,
this week.
Bruce Leroy.
Bruce Lee. Yeah,
That's
one.
him, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that'd just be an exciting fight. That's
Yeah.
all. And he's like, you know, I think the top 10 or top 15. So
Yeah.
that's someone that I'd like to fight, or maybe will fight. There's a lot of guys in the UFC, and yeah, I'm sure I'll get through them all.
Whoever
For
they
sure.
put in front of you. That's it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
All
thank
right.
you for joining us, bro.
Thank you, man.
I think we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so the audience, where can they find you?
They can find me on my Instagram page. I'm usually the most active on that,
Yeah.
posting things and stories and stuff. So my name is Genghis Kaan Ofli, and yeah, Facebook, Instagram. Hopefully we get YouTube kind of going soon as
Nice.
well.
That'll
with
be
some
great.
vlogs and maybe some mini documentaries leading up to fights and stuff. So that's something
love
that
that.
will be starting soon. So
There's a lot.
yeah, there'll be things to kind of tune into and look forward to. So
Love it.
yeah, jump on board.
Let's do it. Well, get behind our boy Genghis, and hopefully we see him at UFC 293. We'll be there, inshallah.
I called you
Um,
Genghis.
I'm gonna coin him the name. He's already coined it to himself. You
Yeah,
know?
that's true.
But you guys know the drill. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Peace.